Imagine a team. How can they come so close to the Super Bowl for over 30 years and still get heartbroken every time? That team is the Buffalo Bills. In the last 10 years, this franchise has broken a 17-year playoff drought and produced an MVP quarterback. They crashed into Kansas City's wall 4 times and were defeated. One of their players unfortunately had a heart attack on the field and was reborn. Throughout this video, we'll discuss 10 critical moments from July 2016 to the present that will forever change Buffalo's fate. And our number 1 pick will surely spark some debate. Before we begin, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel because you'll constantly find content you'll love both during and after the season. Let's start with our 10th point. 10. The Peterman Experiment. By the fall of 2017, the Bills were a franchise that hadn't seen the playoffs in 18 years. McDermott was in the playoff race with a 5-4 record. Then came an unbelievable decision. McDermott benched veteran quarterback Tyrod Taylor and fielded rookie Nathan Peterman, a 5th-round draft pick against the Los Angeles Chargers. Naturally, the result was a disaster. And not because Peterman threw 5 interceptions in the first half, but precisely because of it, the Bills suffered a crushing 54-24 loss. American sports media was practically laughing at the situation, but this humiliation made one thing glaringly obvious. This team desperately needed a franchise quarterback. The position had been vacant since Kelly. If this fiasco hadn't happened, perhaps management wouldn't have found the courage to make that bold move the following spring. Therefore, sometimes hitting rock bottom can be seen as the starting point of the climb. 9. A miracle pass. By December 31st, 2017, the Bills had beaten Miami 22-16. But their fate was still not in their own hands. All of Buffalo was watching the Cincinnati-Baltimore game on their screens. And then it happened. Bengals quarterback Andy Dalton threw a touchdown pass to Tyler Boyd on the 4th down and 12th minute. The Ravens were eliminated. The Bills were in the playoffs for the first time since 1999. And after a 17-year drought, the longest playoff drought in North America's 4 major leagues at that time had officially ended. Grateful fans were showering Dalton's charity with $17 donations, referencing the years of drought. In fact, in the first 3 days, tens of thousands of people had shown solidarity exceeding $250,000. So McDermott and general manager Brandon Beane, who were hired a year earlier, were truly proven right in their very first season. Of course, this moment can be considered the official birthday of a culture of belief that practically breaks tables and leans on each other. 8. All the money on the table. Von Miller's signature. 4 years ago, on March the 16th, 2022, the Bills were no longer a timid country team, but a Super Bowl contender. And they truly decided to act like one. They signed legendary pass rusher Von Miller, who had just won a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams, to a massive 6-year, $120 million contract. $51.5 million was guaranteed, and $45 million was fully guaranteed at the time of signing. So the message here was quite clear. It was time to win. Miller announced his arrival by throwing 2 sacks against his former team, the Rams, in the season opener. However, on Thanksgiving Day, he suffered a knee injury in Detroit, tearing his anterior cruciate ligament. In the short term, it was devastating. Yet the significance of the signing was truly lasting. It officially declared that Buffalo was now a place attracting stars, with Terry and Kim Pegula willing to pay their share. Miller was subsequently released in the spring of 2025. But the team's all-out spirit remained, of course. 7. Heart stopped on the field. On January 2nd, 2023, we're in Cincinnati for Monday Night Football. Young safety Damar Hamlin gets up after a routine intervention and then collapses. His heart is literally stopped. CPR was performed on the field for minutes. His life was literally brought back in the hands of the first responders. The stadium fell silent. Players were practically kneeling and crying. Of course, the game was postponed and eventually never played. It was no longer just a game. It was a different situation. Hamlin was discharged from the hospital 9 days later and returned to football. He started in the first 11 again in the 2024 season opener. This moment cemented Buffalo's culture of belief and bound a team, or even, let me say, the entire league, beyond football. Sometimes a franchise's identity can be defined not by a victory, but perhaps by a heart beating again. 6. The Diggs Saga. Spring 2020. Bean trade Stefon Diggs from Minnesota. The price was high, including a first-round pick, but the result was explosive. Diggs led the league in both receptions and yards in his first season with 1,535 yards. The first Bills player to do so in a single season. Alongside Josh Allen, Buffalo saw their first playoff win since 1995 and their first AFC Championship game since 1993 and 2020. Essentially, Diggs was the catalyst that turned Allen into an MVP candidate. But fairy tales don't always end sweetly. On April 3rd, 2024, following a strained relationship, Diggs was traded to Houston. Buffalo incurred the highest dead cap burden ever known for a wide receiver, exceeding $31 million. This trade forced the birth of the everybody eats philosophy, a system that extended beyond a single star to the entire offense. Without Diggs, Buffalo might never have opened that window. Without him leaving, Allen might never have become MVP. 5. Buying the franchise. Allen's record contracts. Generally speaking, when you find a franchise quarterback, you keep him at any cost. The Bills did this twice. In August 2021, they gave Allen a 6-year, $258 million extension. Then on March 9th, 2025, they shattered all records. 6 years, $330 million, and the highest guaranteed money in NFL history, $250 million, surpassing Deshaun Watson's previous record of $230 million. Allen was now Buffalo's man until 2030, but I mustn't forget that this wasn't just a salary. It was a roster planning strategy. The structure Allen adopted freed up salary cap space and allowed him to build players around Bean. These signings put Buffalo on a path of no return. This is Josh Allen's team, and the window is as wide open as his career. 4. Coronation 2024 MVP. Yes, that rookie, the kid from Wyoming in 2018, the one with the crazy arms but criticized for being inconsistent, was now the league's most valuable player. On February 6, 2025, Josh Allen won the 2024 season MVP award, the first Bills player to receive this honor since Thurman Thomas in 1991. And he did it the hard way. Diggs was gone. The offense was rebuilt. Also, there's this. Allen produced 41 touchdowns that season, 28 on passes, 12 on runs, and 1 on a reception, and became the only player in history to have 25 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns, and 1 reception touchdown in a single season, all while having a career low of just 6 interceptions. The Bills went 13-4. Everybody eats had worked, with 13 different players catching touchdowns. This award was the ultimate validation of that audacious 2018 draft move. But as you can imagine, for Allen, it was a consolation prize. "I wouldn't want to lift this trophy," he said. "I'd rather lift Lombardi." 3. The rebirth of the Snow Nest, the new Highmark Stadium. First of all, I need to state that sometimes it takes a foundation, not a game, to change a franchise forever. On March 28, 2022, the Pegulas and the state of New York announced a deal. A record $850 million in public funding and a 30-year commitment keeping the team in Buffalo. Naturally, this was the final blow to the possibility of the Bills leaving West New York. On June 23, 2026, the new Highmark Stadium opened with a ribbon-cutting ceremony, the largest construction project in West New York history, a giant with a final cost just over $2.1 billion. A 60,108-seat natural grass fort with a canopy covering about 2/3 of the seats, but deliberately left half open. A design that preserves Buffalo's infamous snow and cold as part of its identity. The first official season game will be played on a Thursday night, September 17th, 2026, against the Detroit Lions. The old stadium is being demolished, but the home of the Bills Mafia remains for generations at Orchard Park. 2. The unbreakable wall and the end of an era. The issue I'm about to discuss might be Buffalo's deepest wound. Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, and that wall. On January 23, 2022, I'm talking about 13 seconds. The Bills were leading 36-33. Just 13 seconds on the clock. Everyone thought the game was over. But Mahomes, with 2 passes, brought the team to field goal range, allowing Harrison Butker to tie the game. And Kansas City won in overtime, 42-36. This officially turned into a series, the 2020 AFC Championship, the 2021 Divisional, the 2023 Divisional when Tyler Bass's field goal went wide right, and the 2024 AFC Championship. That controversial, 4th down decision, 32-29. Actually, Allen was 0-4 in the playoffs against the Chiefs. And in the end, the wall had literally swallowed its own architect in some way. On January 17, 2026, the Bills lost to the Denver Broncos 33-30 in overtime, a game in which Allen committed 4 turnovers. He even tearfully said, "I let the team down." Following that night, the Bills decided to fire Sean McDermott after 9 seasons and a 98-50 record. Beane then became the president of football operations. Offensive coordinator Joe Brady was appointed as the franchise's 21st coach on January 27, 2026. As you can see, an era had ended because that wall was never broken down. 1. The beginning of everything. Josh Allen's selection. And now we come to the somewhat controversial number 1. On April 26, 2018, Beane began making trade after trade to somehow quell his search for a quarterback. To move from 12th to 7th, they gave Tampa Bay 2 second-round picks. And from Wyoming, they selected that young quarterback who was in the middle of a storm because of his old tweets on draft night, Josh Allen. If he hadn't been picked that day, none of the moments on this list would probably exist. No MVP, no record contracts, no AFC championship games. I might even say there might not even have been a new stadium. Allen transformed a franchise that hit rock bottom 10 years ago into one of the most feared offenses. He became the biggest star in Bills history. He managed to surpass Jim Kelly's franchise records. Of course, there's only one thing missing, and that's Lombardi. But every turning point in this franchise's last 10 years actually started with that one brave phone call on draft night. That's why I think the selection of Josh Allen is absolutely number 1. After mentioning these critical points, I can say this very briefly. Buffalo Bills are not just about stars and victories. They are a franchise made up of some wrong decisions, heartbreaking losses, and especially rebirths from the ashes every time. And ultimately today, in a new stadium with a new coach, they still live with that one question. Before the window closes, will this team finally be able to break down that wall and get rid of Lombardi? Now, I want to leave the floor to you. You can write your own top ranking in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, because you will continue to find content you will love on this channel both during and after the season.